It looks like we're live, Tiff, and I am so glad to be here with you today. And I understand that you read an article this
Whew.
morning. I'm a little late to the party because I've been dealing with sinus headaches, but I want to hear all about this article because I got some stuff on my chest I want to get off
Okay,
that.
well, let's go. It's venting time. Okay, so this article just came out maybe like an hour ago about John Fetterman.
Mm,
So you know how I feel about him already.
yes.
But this article is crazy. It talks about how he was, just kind of like his progression of being in the Senate, and kind of like like his staffers are actually coming out and saying what is the real deal. Like, it took you 3 years to actually tell us the truth about what's happening with him. They're
Ooh,
telling
spill the tea, honey.
girl, this is crazy. I've been trying to like work through this, but apparently he said about he said to someone, I'm assuming his staffer, basically to kill all the people in Gaza. Like, he's like, let
Ooh,
them, like, he basically said this out loud. Like, he apparently he's been lying. He's according to Adam Jenselson, he gets all his news from he wants to get on his Twitter. They won't let him get it on his Twitter. He is he was in a car crash. Remember, he was in that car crash
I do.
maybe
Yeah.
like a couple months ago. He was apparently speeding. He was speeding, and they said they're basically lucky to be alive. Him and his wife. He's like doing a whole bunch of reckless stuff, and
Wow.
it's just like, wow. Like, I mean, I knew
Kind of
he was.
like when he first started his campaign. Remember how
Yeah, he was. I mean,
crazy
he
and
was.
chaotic that was?
Yeah, it was so chaotic, and it just seems like it's precipitated even worse. And I'm assuming the stroke didn't help with, with all that's going on.
Cognitive things, yeah.
Cognitively, it didn't help, but at the same time, it's like you are in the Senate, like, you can't be there. There was one part of the article that tripped me out where they were talking about the Hegseth vote, and he
Mm,
was saying that he was gonna basically, he wasn't sure what he was gonna do, but then he was gonna go hide out at his parents' house. And it's like he's like almost like he's become like a child, and but also like a reckless man. Like, it is a very odd written, and there is a hit piece. I mean, at the end of the day, it's a hit piece, but there is truth to this because this is how he was beforehand. What bothers me about the whole like Israel thing, like, listen, I support, obviously the Israeli people, and no one wants this war to continue. But
right.
what bothers me about him is that I don't think most people know this, is that John Fetterman, of course, 10/7, yes, that was a very triggering, event. But
Mhm.
he was never like a person. Of course, I know a lot about his history. He was never a person that fully was like an Israel supporter. Like, he was not like one of these big time Israel supporters. And then all of a sudden, after 10/7, he became one. He's going to meet with Bibi Netanyahu. He is like now like the person that people are equate in the Senate with this war. And I'm like, where did this go? He constantly changes his persona. He's constantly changing who he is. He has no ideology. And it just like drives me insane because we warn people about this. Like, we warn them that
Yes.
this is who this man is, and he will flip and he will flop. And, of course, we started the whole campaign with in 2022 with him and the black jogger, right? People ignored the black jogger story, but that
Mhm.
goes to this whole thing too. Like, he was actually not mentally stable because no one
Right.
goes and runs after a person and points a gun at their chest if they're mentally stable. Like, he has always tried to act like he was a savior, and he's
Mhm.
not. And he needs to be checked in somewhere because the story is insane.
Wow. I was not expecting that, but yes, but as you said, it goes back to the original, um, um, the beginning of him running and the behavior and the character that we talked about. So we're gonna keep looking at this story. Wow, thanks for that, T. I'll
Oh
be looking for
God,
that.
you know that there is things that really trigger me, and he is one of them. Like, because
I know.
I'm just like, oh my God. Like, I already had said he probably wasn't gonna run for reelection. I don't think he likes being a senator. One, he's away from his family, and I think his wife is the only person that can like keep him in like I hate to say check because that's not the right word, but she keeps him a lot
Calm.
and
Yeah.
calm and kind
Yeah.
of like, like he doesn't do too many reckless things if she's around. She's kinda like his babysitter, sad to say. But
Yeah.
but being away from her, I don't think that has helped him, and I just don't think he likes the job. But if you don't like the job, guess what, guy? Leave. You can go. You can go and you don't have to be there. Josh Shapiro can go and put the person who should have been in office, which is Connor Lamb, in place, and we can.
Yes.
I mean, he's the thing is Connor Lamb, as much as he had kind of stepped away from it for a little bit and was, he was working. He's a lawyer and he was teaching. And of course, he's come back in the last, like, after Trump 2.0 started, he came back and he's been
Mhm.
doing town halls and going around Pennsylvania, and he's basically doing the job of the senator without being in the Senate, and that's crazy to me. But maybe he got wind of all of this and is like, you know what, I'm just gonna prepare myself. Maybe 2028. Yeah, I think it's 2028 when he can run, and he's preparing himself for that. But I think that Connor Lamb just actually cares about Pennsylvania. He cares about our democracy. And John Fetterman is nowhere to be found. And he's just kind of filling in that void. And he should have been the person there in the first place. But that's neither here nor there.
Exactly, and I know how much you love Connor. You worked on his campaign, I remember that, and so I understand, and we all have these things that trigger us. I tell you,
Oh yeah.
yesterday, some of my friends, LMZ and Gwen, got really, really upset about the EO that they passed with, I guess, Robert Kennedy, about these basically what amounts to conversion therapy for, and he's talked about the camps and everything. But the thing that triggered me yesterday, probably didn't help my sinus headache, is the rollback, really just the dismantling of our civil rights and education. Like Oklahoma is literally putting in their curriculum to teach kids about the 2020 election.
I saw that this morning.
I was so angry because you know what? For me, this is triggering because I'm always talking about the
Right.
lost cause, and people really don't understand what that is. And I mean, I just say that simple term, but what it is really a long-term effort by white supremacists to whitewash history. It started with the Civil War, but that behavior has not changed, and they are still using it right now. So this is, to me, this modern iteration of the same thing, the propaganda. And that's very disturbing to me because it's our children. They're indoctrinating them. They're literally doing the very thing that they always accuse the Dems of doing. And
Projection. Yeah.
exactly. And to me, it goes back because, I talk a lot about Germany and the fascism and the Nazi, regime and the behavior, the kind of things that they did, and Orban. And this stuff is no different. Like Hitler literally went into universities, fired teachers, locked them up, and, if they refused to teach his, propaganda. And essentially, they're doing the same thing here now. And the thing with him was that it was like he wasn't worried about getting their parents, like convincing their parents to
Right.
follow along with him, because his thinking was, if I get the youth, I have them for life. So
Yeah.
you imagine you send kids to school and they're going to be educated, and you're think this is like this stuff is true. They're getting good
Right.
information, truth. But if they're not, this is what they're learning, and it's hard to undo that. That's
Yeah,
why we
no,
still have
for sure.
people.
Yeah, well, I saw that this morning when I was, like, going through the news, and I'm like, "What the hell is this talking about?" Then, of course, Stephen Miller, who I call the bald head demon, he
Mhm.
he also, was talking about schools yesterday as well. And
I
it's like
saw that
it
clip of
it
him.
just and I honestly thought of you because I was like, "This is true indoctrination." Dee has been talking about this for years about, in your state and what they've been trying to do. And it just kind of, and about even the whole thing about putting religion into schools, it's just crazy to me how these people just, like you said, projection. They definitely have blamed Democrats. Old Democrats want to indoctrinate children with all this gay stuff. They all this the all this stuff that they have been trying to do. They're obsessed with trans people. Let's be clear about that.
Yeah.
They're obsessed with all the things that they hate, and they think that we as Democrats are trying to force them on children. But in the real world, what they are doing is that they're trying to demonize what it is that, these people specifically, and kind of DEI and all these other things. But it really is truly them trying to, like you said, push an anti um a white supremacy, anti-black, anti-gay, anti-everything agenda onto parents so that they can then put that onto children. And then they also want to put it in schools and try to, it's like a whole thing. It's a whole concocted thing that they've come up with. And honestly, I'll be perfectly clear, Democrats have no way to challenge that. It is really hard to do.
It is, and here's my thinking, and here's what I say, like, you can't really confront that head on, like, like, combat their lies with a fact or whatever. That doesn't really work. It's like he said, she said kind of stuff. And my thing all along has been that, because I've been studying them and watching them, is that we have to kind of behave in the same manner and build like they did because they didn't get here overnight with
Right.
this kind of strategy. And so we have to work in a similar way, building this long-term kind of strategy and apparatus to really get the truth out there. And I feel like you and I and others are part of that strategy, and because they have this huge like megaphone, of course, in the White House, but they have all of these podcasts and things that help them to push the propaganda out there. And so we have to kind of continue to push the truth out there, but also not focused on fighting them, because I feel like that's how we got dragged into this
Agree.
gender identity stuff. You
Mhm.
know, we need to decide what our values are. I mean, we know what
Absolutely.
our values
Amen.
are, and we need to just drill down on our values because they are the values of American people, what we're going to do. I'm
Exactly.
not saying ignore them, but don't try to counter all their crazy, because it just, first of all, makes us look crazy and seem crazy and allow them to change the narrative. Because can you imagine someone saying, even addressing the fact that kids are going to school, female and coming back male, or furries in school? Like, these people are literally saying this thing, like
Oh, yeah.
furries.
Yeah, well, yeah.
Like,
Well, yesterday, it's like you said, I agree 100% about the values thing. I have been preaching this since we lost the election, that we need a very, like, no, because okay, let's start from here. So I said this in a video last week. We do have a platform. The Democrats have a platform. It was something that was presented during the DNC. It is
mhm,
92 pages. Okay, we can barely get people to read an article. So you cannot throw 92 pages out there and expect people to read it or even know that it even exists.
exactly.
You need to have a very bullet pointed, no more than, I say 5, but I would even say no more than 2-page document that just lays out what the Democrats believe in, what their value system is. And if people don't agree with that, then they can move on and not be a Democrat, right?
Yeah.
They can be an you can there is a way to be an independent and focus on what it is. You don't have to pick a party. There is no one says you have to be a Democrat or you have to be an independent or you have to be a Republican. There is no one that is like you have to do this when you sign up to vote. You can even change as you go along. I think many people have changed and gone back or whatever it may be, depending on your state. Because like in my state, you have to be a Democrat to vote in our primary. There's no way around that. right? So
And in mine, see, you don't. That's why I
if
say I can comfortably say I'm an independent
right.
because we don't have to declare a party. We just when we go in to vote, we ask for the ballot that we want,
Yep.
Republican or Democrat. And the one good thing, all the awful things that they did in our legislative session that wrapped up, the one good thing that they did was they um, solidified our primary process because there were people who wanted to go back to caucuses. um you know you're right, you don't have to declare, but I think that when a party's values are clear,
Right.
like people will join you in
Yeah,
that.
no, for sure. I think they definitely will, and you can be aligned with the Democratic Party. Like I know you're more aligned with the Democratic Party. You would be considered a Dem leaner. You lean towards the Democrats, but there is no need. I think a lot of people, to be perfectly honest, are tired of the polarization. They're tired of
Yes.
Dem versus Republican, and a lot of people don't necessarily want to be a part of a party system, and
Right.
that's fine. But most people will the way they vote is not, oh, I'm going to vote Republican this time, Democrat that time. They're typically aligned to a specific party, even if they're not actually part of that party. And so I think having that value proposition or proposal, whatever you want to call it, out there to say, listen, this is what the Democrats stand for. And, there's a lot of talk about, rebranding the party and how the party should look. But if you don't tell people there's a lot of misinformation about what the party stands for, right? To me, the party should stand for marginalized people, right? We are a party that protects and we support marginalized people in every aspect. Whether you're a poor person who doesn't necessarily have money, we should be fighting for you to be able to get to the middle class, right? That's what we should want to do. But a lot of times when Democrats are talking, they're talking from the middle class up. There are people that are way below the middle class that are struggling. So you're not talking to those people specifically. And that is where we lose a lot of people. And I did that analysis on the Gen Z voters.
Mm-hmm.
And boy, oh boy, was I surprised, because a lot of them said that they did not have the information. They didn't even care about politics in particular. They didn't That's why they sat out. And
Exactly.
and what struck me the most was that it is the way that people voted, some of these young people voted, is based, yes, I don't and this is not about Bernie, because I really about class, right? It's not, I don't
Yeah.
even class. It's about struggling and not struggling financially. The people that were struggling financially, they stayed home. The people that were doing good, which is probably people that are college educated, that are in that category of Gen Z, people that have jobs, have families that are stable, they went out and voted. It was like a 63 to 39% on people who struggled. 63% of people who were struggling financially did not go vote. So
Right.
that is something, to me, as a party, we should address, because why aren't they going to? It could be lack of information. A lot of people said they were not contacted. No one reached out to them. And listen, in a perfect world, people say, well, why does someone need to be reached out to be able to vote? Well, technically, people want to be reached out to, right?
Yes.
You are
They
more.
want to
You
be
are
asked to the dance.
Yeah, you had to be invited to the party, right? If you're not invited to the party, then you're just kind of showing up, and it's not. It's some people don't necessarily think the way that other people think, right? If you're a Dem and you're in the bubble, you think a certain way. If you're outside the bubble, you think a different way. And so we need to be able to find those people. I said it also to someone else during the week. After I wrote that, I said one thing that my governor does, which is really important, and I think people get mad at me for saying, I think Dems have become too complacent, right? They don't want to go out and talk to the people, right? They're doing it a little bit more, but my governor goes to So festivals. He goes to he has he there's a reggae festival. He's gonna be there and he's probably gonna sing Bob Marley. He's going to talk to
He was
people.
on The View this week. I
Yeah,
loved
I
it.
saw. He will go to a wine festival, just go in the crowd and talk to people. We have so many things that happen in Maryland. Every weekend there is something. He is when he was running, he's gonna be there. He's gonna be running for reelection. He's gonna be out there. And if you want to invite people to come to be a part of the party, the movement, the whatever you want it to be, you are going to have to go and meet people where they are. So you're going to have to go out in the streets and stop being lazy and expect people to just show up. My congressperson, he has events. He's having a bull roast. He has one every single year. People come, it's fun, but these people get out and go and do stuff. You have to be able, you can't expect people to just show up. Those days are over. And I feel like Dems definitely have taken that for granted. In a perfect world, people would show up and say, I hated Trump and I'm gonna vote.
Right. People would just honor their, I feel, obligation
Right.
to vote. Because for me, as an American citizen, I view it as an obligation. Like
Yeah, me
it's a
too.
right, and if you don't use it, look at it now. We are about to lose it, because
Yeah.
they're trying to, change things up. And I, living in the South, know how hard people fought and people lost their lives over the right to vote. So my view of it is different than a lot of people, because I lived in a place where the votes really are still being suppressed, because here in Tennessee, we got almost 500,000 people who are disenfranchised because of felony charges. And you know that they are largely Black and brown people. There are Black and Latino people who are largely affected by that. And they keep changing the rules to be able to slap a felony charge on someone,
Well, they
Uh,
yeah, like you said, they haven't made the process easy. So in that poll, so the part that I focused on mostly was like the voters of color piece of
mhm.
it, and there were people that said they felt like they didn't know, one, they didn't know how to vote because no one ever told them. Yeah, they didn't know how to vote.
Breaks my heart.
Yeah, it breaks my heart too. They didn't know how to vote. They didn't know where to get information to vote. They just didn't. I think it was like 15%. They didn't. There's a lot of people that I think for us, because we have taught our children the value of voting, that we assume that everyone else has done the same. And that's not
Yeah.
true. That's
It
not true. There's people that don't tell their children that they should vote or why they should vote. And it's something that is passed on from generation to generation. My grandparents voted, my father voted, and my mother, when she became a citizen, I vote, and I purposely go with my daughter to vote. Right? It's
Same.
our
I take my
thing.
granddaughter with me to vote. Yeah,
Exactly.
yeah.
Yeah, I mean, so it is something that has been taught and passed down because the generations before us understood the value in voting and why it was important to do so. But I don't think that everyone is doing. If you're struggling financially, if your parents are not around, they may not have that connection to be like you should vote. And then there's people that are just disaffected. They're just like, I don't care about voting. The system is going to be the same. The contrarians, the system is going to be the same no matter what I do, and nothing's going to change. Yeah, you may not get those people to ever come around and vote. Yeah, you can try, but I just feel like there's a disconnect in how we communicate. And people say, "Oh, it's not messaging." But in a way it is messaging, because we have to talk to the people who are low propensity voters who don't necessarily show up. There are people that showed up in 2020, didn't show up in
And they don't
2024.
read articles
They
and
don't read. Yeah, they don't read. They're not really talking to people. They kind of just want to stay apolitical, don't want to be bothered. And that's
trying
fine.
to survive. A lot of people are just
Yeah, just
busy
trying
try
to
Yeah.
make it, right? But then
Mhm.
but they don't realize how much politics influences their lives, because look at the tariff stuff. Look at all
Mhm.
this stuff. Look at, like you said, changes in schools. All these things are political. And even if you want to stay apolitical, you can never you can do that, but politics is still going to impact your life. no matter what.
Exactly. So, it's best that you have a say in how it impacts you.
Yeah.
Like your say may not be the one that's taken into consideration when the laws and things are passed, but at least you had your say. My thing is if you don't vote, you don't get to complain. But those people tend to be the
The
loudest.
biggest, the biggest complainers.
Yes. And so that's my thing is trying to help people understand. Like, I get that, because the media looks for the sensationalism of it all. And, it turns people off in a way. It makes them, you know, um, not like politics because that's how they see politics from that media lens, how it's presented. And the media is always presenting it in a very kind of controversial way or sensational way, them versus us or whatever. And it's not, they're not providing context or, to a lot of the story. So people don't get that. And I feel like it's up to us and the Democratic Party to provide that context. Like, stop combating, the lies that these folks are telling, and tell people who you are, what you can do for them, what you want to do for them. Like, I know sometimes it is hard for me to imagine that people couldn't understand and see the difference between a Kamala Harris and a Donald Trump,
Oh,
a
for sure.
Biden and a Donald Trump. Like the things, I mean, like President Biden and MV Harris were out there with the union. They're fighting for working class people. They're the ones who were trying to give the tax credit, the child tax credit, like everything that the Democrats do is really about making people's lives better, like for all Americans. But they're doing the work. They need to talk about it. I feel like a little bit more, not.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, and the talking about it, the thing about the talking about it is you have to ask people actually have to listen. So a lot of people heard what the Democrats were doing, but when the Democrats were talking, they weren't listening, right? So they're like, okay, well, Democrats gave you, I don't know, the child tax credit, right?
Hmm.
Okay, great. They do they even equate that to Biden and Harris? Probably not. They're like, "Okay, we were getting these checks and the checks went away and we're not getting them anymore." Then you have people with the stupid stimulus, which drove me crazy during the election, where they're like,
Yes.
"Trump gave us a stimulus." And it's like, "Yeah, but Biden gave you an even bigger stimulus and you don't even recognize that. He also gave you the child tax credit, which you were getting. My cousin was getting like $700 extra a month. So it was a lot of money. I mean, $700 to not
A
getting
month.
getting zero. That's a big deal. He has two kids.
Exactly.
Like that is a big deal. So when you take that program away, people are now at one point. So in 2002, in 2001, when that program came to be, and then it ended, I guess 2002. I think it ended. It ended at I think it ended at the end of 2001, where people were getting those checks. Now all of their expenses went up. Like everything looked like it was more because it was more. They didn't have the money to pay for the stuff that they were able to pay with when they had those checks. So people were starting to feel, the impact, and inflation was high, and they blamed Biden for that. The question now is, are they going to blame Trump, because they're going to feel the same thing. There's going to be a shortage of stuff in the stores if he doesn't course correct on this tariff shit. There's going to be issues, and people are like, "Oh, but the job report came out this morning." And my thing is, Biden had 4 years of consecutive job growth. Did that make people feel better? As a person who tried to push what Biden was doing every month, I would watch the job report and say, "Oh, Biden, we gained so and so amount of jobs," and Bidenomics, they were pushing that. But did that really translate to people? And this is what I'm talking about when I talk about messaging, right? Because that message about jobs didn't resonate with people. What resonates with people is the amount of money they have in their bank account, the amount that they can afford every week when they go food shopping, and they're worried about themselves, and this is a very selfish country, so they're not worried about if you can afford your groceries, they're worrying about if they can afford their groceries. And if you have a job, great, but I have a job that's making, $10 an hour and I can barely survive. I don't care about all those other people with jobs. So there's a disconnect in how we talk to people about economics, because we're not talking about what's in their pocket. We're talking about all these other numbers. Most people don't even own stocks to even care about the stock market.
Right. Yeah. Well, look, we've got 16 people who have joined us. I am so glad that you guys have joined Tip and I in our inaugural live. Um, we appreciate it, and we're just kind of, talking about the things that, Tip broke a good hot story on Fetterman. We're talking about some of the other things that are going on, and as I, have told you guys in the weekly. Good trouble chat that I have. I plan to be doing more of these, and I'll try to give notice when I give them. But Tiff was ready when I reached out to her, and she said Friday works, and I'm like, let's do it. So, so glad that you guys are here with us, and spread the word. But Tiff, you know. One of the things that, of course, besides education, that really is getting on my nerves right now is our national security. Like, it's a serious problem, you know?
Yeah.
As a veteran, having Hexet there, like my head like wants to spin around sometimes when I see some of the stuff that he is doing, and yesterday they fired or demoted Walls, and I feel like he's kind of the sacrificial lamb to
Mhm.
Signal Gate, but not really, because he didn't really leave the cabinet or whatever. He's just being sent over to the UN, which they don't think is anything anyway. But Hegseth is still there, and people keep calling for him to be fired, and he should. But here's what I know that he probably will not be. And the reason is because some of the crazy stuff that Trump wanted to do in his first term, and using the military, he was stopped by traditional military men with integrity. Okay? Hegseth is not that. And it really disturbs me. And Trump knew that because he was really angry with Milley when he stopped him. He talking about shooting protesters in the leg, got the guard spread across the Capitol because people were marching because a Black man was killed by a policeman. And that's another thing that I see, unfortunately, coming for us, because remember that happened under his regime. And it was because police were emboldened with bad behavior. Like they knew there were no going to be no checks and balances on them, immunity. And so he has opened up the door for this same kind of behavior. He is like militarizing our police departments, the border patrol people, even citizens. But he's taken our military and he's turning it inward on citizens to do things that the military was not created or designed to do. In fact, laws against it, you know.
Yeah. Oh boy.
That really disturbs me, especially when I know I tell people every crazy story we hear about them doing something awful, I know that there are 10 others that are not getting reported. Like, it broke my heart to those women in Oklahoma that were drug out of their house
Oh my God.
in their underwear, uh, embarrassed, all of their possessions taken, like their money and taken, their house, basically destroyed, everything in disarray. And they saw the insignia on these people. It said it was FBI, ICE, and the U.S. Marshals. When all of those agencies were contacted for comments about it. We weren't there. We weren't there. We weren't there.
Oh,
What
yeah.
what do people do? Like, this is scary and dangerous because it means it could happen to anyone. And you first of all, they're denying that it happens, but when the people go and say, like, it happened to me, and it's like, who did this? We didn't do it. We didn't do it. We didn't do it. Who, you know?
Yeah, and yeah, that Oklahoma story really disturbed me because I read through it and I watched a video, and that family actually moved from Maryland and they moved to Oklahoma.
Mm,
So they moved from a blue state to a red state, and she said the woman was, she was crying in the video, which broke my heart because at the end of the day, you hope to leave and go somewhere so you can be. Maryland is expensive. She said they moved there because it was more affordable,
right.
which made perfect sense.
Yeah.
And they go to this house, they're renting this house, and the the Homeland Security people are ridiculous, okay? Because Shannon Watt, of course, Shannon Watts, everybody knows her. She made a post, and the why is the Homeland Security Department on Twitter responding to people? Let's talk about that.
Mm,
They respond to Shannon Watts, and they say, "Oh, well, we were there for the house. Like, we went and raided the house. We were because, of course, the people they were looking for had already moved out this house. They weren't even the right people.
right.
So you're just raiding houses without even doing any research to see who is living in this house at this present time." And
Breonna Taylor.
yes, and then that's exactly who I thought of, and the woman in Texas that, remember, she was with her nephew when and they came and they shot her. And I'm
Mhm.
like, this is the same kind of craziness that is happening with local police, but now it's even at a bigger level where you have, all like you said, the FBI and all these different who didn't even do their due diligence to figure out who was staying in this house, watching to see, oh, we're just coming to raid a house. So you could so that means you can raid my house at any time, that they can raid your house at any time because they say that they're looking for someone who doesn't even exist in this house. Like, it is really, really scary to think about. And I always think about this because, in the beginning of the year, obviously after the election, obviously Latinos, they voted for Trump at a higher number than they obviously should have. And,
Right.
we kind of were like, even myself, my father is Latino. I'm like, whatever, screw those people. But when you hear stories about people houses are being raided, they're not even, they have nothing to do with any of this. And they're now being basically targeted, and they're being racially profiled. That should scare every Black person in America. That should scare every Black person in America and every Latino and every Asian, because they can do that. If they are willing to do that to these people, they are willing to do that to anyone, and they will justify that shit in any way possible, because they're the government. The government
Right.
can
Who's
just come
gonna
into
check
your
me?
house.
Who's gonna check me? And another example, you're right. It creates this sense of fear, which is what they want, but we are right to be afraid because you don't know, because it could happen to you. And what are your recourses, when they are really literally now defying courts and judges and basically telling them, if you don't agree with us, we're going to find a way to get you too. I mean, they really are establishing their own Gestapo,
No, they
essentially. And
are.
someone
And
said,
the thing about it is, that lady who was, telling the story about, obviously they put her outside and they took all of her money.
yes,
And they have not given her back her money. She's like, "How am I supposed to survive?" Like, we need to be having real conversations. Which, like I said, there's a lot of people that don't use banks. They keep money in their house because they don't trust the bank. And you're gonna go in someone's house and take all their money, and now they have no money to be able to pay their bills, to eat, to survive, because you raided the wrong house, and you have now taken this woman's money, and her cell phone. She doesn't even know when she's gonna get anything back.
and
And this is
she doesn't
one
even know
story.
who to go to get it back because
Exactly.
everybody is saying it wasn't us. It wasn't us. It wasn't
Right.
us. What do you
Yeah.
do?
Where's her money at? Like, and you're admitting the same thing with the Kilmer Abrego Garcia thing. They're admitting that they got the wrong people, but you're holding her money, and you went to the house, and you destroyed this woman's house, and she and now has. It's not like the government is going to pay to fix up your house back. She doesn't even own this house. She's renting this house, and
Exactly.
now they have to fix up this house because the government decided that this was the house they wanted to rate, and they got nothing out of it because they weren't even the right damn people.
Exactly. And there's a case in the Supreme Court right now where I think the couple is from Atlanta, where they went into the wrong house kind of thing, you know? So again, it could happen to any of us. And you have states like mine, because I'm in a red state, where they actually kind of pass these laws to make it easier for profiling to be done, you know? So it really should give us all caution, because especially if you're black and brown, but they could do it to anyone. And then the thing of it is they've sent some of these people away. They've detained them who are literally U.S. citizens. I'm not
Mhm.
talking about the children, because that's awful
That's
too.
a whole
But grown people. Like there was a story of a man who I think he lives in Louisiana, but was on his way to Florida for work, construction work, and he was detained only for one night because his family presented his Social Security
Georgia.
and birth certificate and all of that. Then there was another one in Arizona. He was detained for 9 days, and the thing of it is that in their documentation for both of these cases, they say that these men told them that they crossed the border illegally. Now, why would an American citizen say that?
Right. And they were making them sign documents. They're
It,
making them sign documents saying that they are in a gang. Like, this is pure fascism. I mean, there's
mm,
no if
no way
a way
around it.
about
Yes.
it. And we warn people. We warn people that this could happen, and they refuse to listen, or they didn't believe that it was true. And we are now seeing the results and the consequences of putting Trump in office and what would happen. Because in my estimation, from what I see, yes, Trump is the president, but Trump is not running this country day to day. He is the face of this country, and Stephen Miller and Holman and Russ Voigt, whatever his name is,
Yeah, boy.
2025 guy, this crazy Kristen Noem, that all these people are the ones who are working together to try to harm us. And while Trump is the face of it and he co-signs it and he says, this is what I'm doing, and he is not mentally stable enough to be able to run this country. And again, projection, because this is what they said about Biden. But the truth of the matter is that is actually Trump. If you listen to anything that he says, and I don't watch him because I can't stand him, but I watch, Aaron and Asen, I think is how you say his name, ACYN, their
Mhm,
clips and stuff. And
mm.
what I'm seeing is a person who is not cognitively well. Oh my God, did you see the clips from that ABC interview that Trump
Yes.
did?
He
I
would
mean,
not get off of that. Like it wasn't photoshopped. It wasn't, but like the man would not move on. It's like you've got
insane.
to agree with me. Okay.
Yeah, and the fact of the matter is, not only did he want him to agree with him, he didn't even recognize that it was the MS-13 was not something that was real. It was something they put there, and poor what is his name? I forgot the guy's name who was doing the interview. He's like trying to explain. He's like, "Let's move on," and he's like, "No, it's there." And I'm like, "What the hell are you talking about?" Like, that he's just not cognitively well,
And
and
and they
he gets stuck on these things.
right, and they can shove anything. What that told me is that they can shove anything
Absolutely.
in Terry Moran, that's his name.
Terry Moore, yeah,
They can shove anything in his face,
and he believes
and
it.
he believes it, and he will, double down on it, and
Yeah, that was scary.
Yes, and they know this. And I knew that he's not interested in being president anyway. He's
No.
holding the office. Susie Wiles, his chief of staff, she's the one that's running things and making sure the trains run on time. And she doesn't get talked about enough. But go back and look at the section in Project 2025 where they talk about that position, the chief of staff, because they knew that that was what that person was doing. Right. And
Mhm.
so she's the one now when Wass was moved, she's the one talking to national security people. She'll be the one deciding who is going to take his place unless they decide to keep making little Marco, their pack mule. I
Well,
saw
I
your
laugh
post.
because yesterday I wrote about this because it just struck me, and people though the magazines were not happy with me because the way I said it, but I'm like, they're literally treating Marco Rubio like he is an actual Latino man because they are literally giving him every job and he's getting the same one salary and he is taking every single job. Before you know it, he'll be running the whole cabinet, all the cabinet positions on that one salary. And that is a kind of like a little trope about Mexicans and all their jobs and stuff. But honestly, it just made me think like they would never do that to someone else in there. You know what I mean? Like they would not.
Right.
He has four jobs. He is running four different departments. He's running the secretary. He's the Secretary of State, so he's running the State Department. He's running he's a national security advisor, so he's running NSA, which is right down the street from me. He
Mhm.
is also running the National Archives, and he is running USAD. USAID, the USAID. So he has four jobs. How many more jobs can you give this man? Like he is tapped out. Like you're just it's just wild to me. And then the thing is, you see Republicans touting this. So this morning I saw Mike Lee. He had a post, and they're joking about it. They're like, oh well, maybe they can make him the Pope. He still has room for one. I'm like, I don't know. That's just disrespectful to me because you're just
Exactly.
continuing to give this man a whole bunch of jobs. And how can one? There is only one other person that has ran that the role of NSA and the State Department, which was Henry Kissinger. Not a great example there. You know what I
Exactly.
mean? And
Hmm.
so it is just insane that they are, and like you said, to the national security piece of it, if you have one person running two departments, that is very scary. The NSA should have their own person running it. It should not be the same person. Marco Rubio running the State Department, that is a diplomatic position. There should be, like you said, there's no checks and there's no balances. The NSA, the person who's running the NSA or a national security advisor should have their own perspective. The person running the state, and they're supposed to bounce off each other. We saw that when with Biden, um, we had what's his name? Oh God, Jake. I forget Jake's last name. He was what is his name? He was
I,
he
it,
was a national security advisor.
right.
And then you
Was it
had
Sherman
Blinken.
or
No, I cannot. I forgot his last name, but I know
I
his
know who
face.
you're talking
You
about
know his
though.
face. And then you had
Yeah.
the then you had the State Department, which was run by Anthony Blinken. Right? They were working together, but they had a different perspective on how to go forward with these things, and that is the whole point. You should not have the same person with the same ideas running two different departments because they do two different things. Jake Sullivan, thank you.
Sullivan. Yeah, I knew
And
it was an S. Yes.
yeah,
Okay.
I could not think. I see his face. He was on TV the other day, and you
Yeah.
have these two people that are working toward the same goal, but it should not be the same person. And it's just frustrating to kind of watch it all play out because what are they going to give what are they going to give Marco Rubio next? Are they going to give him like the Department of Defense as well? Like and the thing is oh my god, the funny thing is that people yesterday last night on Twitter they were saying, "Oh, well, yeah, 2028 Marco, he's got all these jobs. He's going to be the next president." And I'm like, wait till JD Vance sees this shit. He's gonna flip a freaking wig because He has Marco Rubio actually has more power than JD Vance at this point,
Uh-huh.
which is probably not a bad thing, but also not a good thing either. Because Marco has become a person that has no spine. No, he is a sycophant for Trump. He's always been weak, in my opinion. He's always been kind of just a person who does not have any kind of strength at all. But what I've seen from the last couple of months with Marco is that he has totally become Trump's bitch, so to speak. And
He really has.
and it's really sad to watch because you look at his face and he is like soulless. He has no
Right.
his
Blank.
eyes are dead. He is not I never liked Marco Rubio. I never respected Marco Rubio, but he at least stood for something. And right now he stands for Trump, and that is not a good thing. So I don't know where Marco goes from here, but if the goal is to be president in 2028, I got news for him. You're still a Latino man, and they're not voting for you, bro. Get
E
over it.
exactly. Well, we've been here almost an hour, so I really have really enjoyed it. I am so glad that I got to do this with you, and, as we kinda wrap up here, I wanna thank everyone for joining us, and as I said, we're gonna be doing more of them. Do some more with Tiff. I have some other folks lined up, that I'm gonna be doing, some lives with, and I think it's great. Yes, Pat Summerall, exactly. um, that any kind of message you want to leave folks with, anything that you feel like people need to be watching, looking out for, or
I don't know. There's so much happening on a daily basis. I guess just protect your peace because there's so much going on. And it really is a stressful time. I wake up in the morning and I'm like looking at the news and I'm just like, what the hell is happening? I go to sleep watching to see what's happening and go to wake up. And that was not something they necessarily did when Biden was in office because I knew they had everything under control. But it
right,
just, it
like we did at night.
yeah, I slept and now I wake up and I'm not in a panic, so to speak, but I wake up and I'm just like, what is the day gonna be? I don't want to talk about politics and then I end up talking about politics because like it never ends. But it is really stressful. It's a really stressful time and I think scary too, to your point. It's a very scary situation where you don't really know. My dad even asked me, he's like, do you think I should walk around my passport? And I'm like, honestly, if you were, he lives in New York, obviously, but hearing the stories about all these things, different things that are happening, I mean, phenotypically, he doesn't necessarily look like a Latin man, but he's still in his heart of hearts know he's a Puerto Rican man and he could literally be stopped at any point. And he's not the only person that I've heard say that in my family. There's other people who are more light skinned who have said, should I walk around with my passport? Because I'm worried that I'm going to get stopped on the street or I'm going to be in the wrong place at the wrong time and someone's going to wonder if I am legal or illegal in this country. These are just things that are going through people's heads and that is what Trump wants from people,
Hmm.
right? That's kind of like the goal, but it is still something that is in the back. People are saying, I saw this morning where people, we've been talking about protesting, right? There's lots of protests that have been going on, and we're saying, you don't see people that look like either you or I at these rallies. And there's a reason for that because people are fearful that they will be locked up. And if sure enough, there was, I guess, a protest yesterday and a black woman was arrested. And
Hmm.
the post was, this is why we told you not to go. There's a whole slew of, of white people, and this one black woman was singled out and arrested. And this is what people have been saying why we're not protesting. It's not because we don't want to protest. It's not because we're not pissed off about this, but our resistance cannot be out in these streets to be the scapegoat for Trump and to say, look at all these black people out here and then
Criminals.
using that to then, you know, say he's going to declare martial law and all this other stuff. Like we learned our lesson from the George Floyd protest, Black Lives Matter. We kind of learned that we can be a part of whatever you wanna call it, the resistance,
Opposition and
opposition, whatever word you wanna use. You can be those things, but you don't necessarily have to be on the forefront of these protests. So, the people that are protesting, more power to you, but there's a reason why we're not out there, and it's because and I've thought about it, I'm like, "Oh, maybe I should go to this," there was a bunch of stuff this week. There was something yesterday. They
yeah, because the May Day, because traditionally
Right,
May Day is like for workers. It's an international
right.
celebration or whatever. Way back when, like it was about spring, celebrating spring or whatever. But then it evolved into celebrating workers and stuff. So
Yeah.
uh,
Yeah, people are just using their logic and using their common sense on how they want to proceed. But it's not like we're not on social media. People are doing, there's a lot of different groups that are being formed, a lot of forums that are being held, and there's ways to participate. Gwen and I, we went to our town hall here, which was insane. I mean, these people were pissed. They were so mad. And it is really important for our elected officials to be out there, like we talked about in the beginning, and to listen to what people are saying and what it is that they want from the Democrats. Right, the Democrats have to be able to listen to the people and deliver on what it is. We can't change presidents. We can't make Trump go away. We do not have the numbers in the Senate nor in the House, but we can listen and we can find better ways to message because 2026 election is 18 months away. We think it's like not far away, but it is 18 months away. And I'll leave with this. I was very happy, and I don't know if people watched it, but they should. I wrote a Substack about Hakeem Jeffries, the other
I
day.
love that.
And listen, I am always willing to give people grace. And I initially said, I didn't think Hakeem Jeffries was doing a great job of being leader. I recognize that he wants to lead his caucus, and fair enough. He is not the leader of the resistance. He is not a leader of, whatever we got going on, trying to confront Trump. But over the last month, I have seen a change in him, and I said one of the things that I thought changed in him was seeing Cory Booker on the floor, and that gave him some, I guess, it gave something happened that day, and he has definitely changed his tune. He is less less monotone. He is more emotional. He is someone who I'm seeing come into his own. And I always thought he was going to be a good speaker. I thought he was be a great speaker if that opportunity ever came up. But I'm like, Brooklyn Hakeem, you have finally rejoined us, because that DC Hakeem that was coming off as very, oh my God, he was like
Trying to be
too,
diplomatic
yeah,
and
too politically correct. And I'm like, bro, you're from Brooklyn. We are from the same place. We are no punks. We are not going to be punked around by anyone and anything. So you need to rise up and show who you are and fight for the people. And I thought that his speech, and I recommend anyone who hasn't watched it to go watch his speech that he gave on Wednesday. It was actually really good. He talked about two women. One was in the audience. One was from Florida, I believe, and the other story he gave, which I made a clip of, was about a woman in Altadena, California, who had suffered through the fires. And he talked about faith. And he said, this woman had never, even though she lost every single thing, she never gave up on her faith. And I would say for all of us to do the same thing. Don't give up on your faith. Whatever you have faith in, and that may not be, a lot of people don't have faith in politicians. They may not even believe in God, but you have to have faith in something, that maybe even that things can change, that we can win an election, whatever it may be, you put your faith into, just have that faith so that we can go forward, because otherwise, without faith, what do we have? And faith without works is dead. We know that. So we all have to do our part to talk to people and protest or whatever it may be, so that we can get through the next 18 months and have faith that we will win the election. And hopefully we can at least have one check on Trump. And we know that it's going to be a long road. I mean, we have, what, 3.5 years, maybe even more of this crap, but we have to have faith in something, right?
Yeah, because as you said, without it, what we'd just be in despair, and we can't be there, but we all have to be involved in something, whatever it is. You may not like politics or whatever, but you probably care about if you have kids in school, what they're doing in the schools. My thing is always asking people to get involved. Start at the local level. You don't have to know all of these things that are going on at the national level, but find out what's going on in your local level, the things that affect you, because every town you got a school board, you got a county commission, you got city councils or whatever, because these people are making decisions. Actually, the decisions that they're making are impacting you most. You know, so, and it's very, and usually these are people that they might be people you go to church with that are on the city council or are involved in, but that's has always been my thing, is getting people civically engaged and involved, because there is no time like this for all of us to become civically engaged, because I love that like all of our the people who are in office and the people who have been leaders, and I still consider them a leader, like VP Harris, her speech to the Emerge. Oh, I loved it. That elephant analogy. If you
Yeah.
guys, I did that clip. If you guys haven't seen it, please watch it, because that's the thing. We have to stick together, and we cannot, and even when after they lost, what I heard her and President Biden both saying is stay engaged, no matter how crazy, how ugly this gets. We must stay engaged. We can't close our eyes, because you close your eyes and you may wake up in jail or in custody somewhere with these people. So you got to stay woke, because that's that's what they hate. But we have to stay woke. Okay, we have to stay engaged, and we have to, like I said, you don't have to get out there and march. And I always tell folks, I don't think black and brown people should, because they're looking for an excuse to charge us with, being criminals and disruptive or whatever. But there are other ways to resist and to protest without actually physically being in the streets. You can support things like this, our lives, which I hope maybe we can make this a regular on Fridays or something, or every other, because I love it. And I'm getting a lot of great feedback. I don't know if you're seeing the feedback and the messages, but people are really enjoying it. And I have enjoyed it too. And I
Me
think it's
too.
important that, like we're just regular folks, we're a little bit more engaged in politics than other folks are. And I think that it helps sometimes for people to know that and to see that. And I feel like we can bring them in to understanding about things, and finding ways to get engaged that maybe they might not get from political leaders and things like that. But it really is a time for all of us, because the power does lie with us. Like they have the official offices that they're holding, but it's we the people that put them there. Okay,
Man.
and so we can take them out. So stay strong, people, and stay engaged. And Tiff, I want to thank you again
Sure.
so very much for doing this with me, and thank all of you who have joined us. And I think Tiff and I will definitely be doing it again. And I got some other folks lined up that I'm going to be doing some lives with. So just stay tuned, guys. And thanks again.
Thanks, Dad. Bye.
Bye bye.